get ripped off, you ain't getting your money back. Yours truly, that's right, this guy. I did get ripped off. Yes, I did. Let's talk about crypto.
All right.
I've not processed it all and I've not worked my way through it all. What the actual
Hey, if you want to have fun with crypto and play the lottery, hey, go for it. But treat it like you're going to the casino. Law enforcement agencies that are interested in investigating crypto likely have the ability to investigate crypto. Hundreds of thousands of dollars that is going completely uninvestigated. People think the feds are going to investigate it, but when we're chasing victim money, it's not going to Monero. It's difficult to get Monero. You can't get a victim to go get Monero.
What types of schemes are we seeing? What's the most common types of schemes that are out there?
The elephant in the room, it's this pig butchering. The idea is that you start to fatten the pig. They see within a week their $1,000 became $1,700.
Please pay attention to what Jesse said today. I'm a lifetime criminal. And in the space of 6 weeks, I've been hit twice. Everyone can be had. Hi, I'm Brett Johnson, former United States Most Wanted criminal, now good guy. In today's world, criminals come in all shapes and sizes, but they all have one thing in common. They all have criminal thoughts. On today's episode, I am beyond thrilled to have Jesse Gossman coming in. We're going to talk about cryptocurrency. Jesse is a law enforcement officer, and he knows his stuff. I've known Jesse for several years, and he is absolutely outstanding. Now, I'll tell you why I'm bringing him in. Yours truly, that's right, this guy. I guess it's been maybe 2 months ago. I made a comment about cryptocurrency. If you get ripped off, you ain't getting your money back. Here's the thing. I know that absolute statements are a thinking error. I know that. I've been taught that enough times. Jesse commented on that post and he said, if that's not always the case, sometimes people do get their money back. Jesse runs Block Audit, and we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about several different types of crypto scams that are going on and how to go about reporting if you are a victim of one of these schemes and maybe perhaps get your money back as well. Before we get to that, and let me just keep going for a second. It turns out that yours truly, meaning me, turns out that recently I have decided to get involved into cryptocurrency myself. I have historically veered away from that because of the criminal aspects that go along with crypto. I didn't want to get involved with that. I viewed that as a bit of a trigger for myself. That being said, recently I decided, you know what? I don't want to be a speaker and consultant the rest of my life. As a matter of fact, on Twitter today, someone chimed in and he said, the only thing you are is a wannabe Frank Abagnale. That got in my feelings a little bit. It really did. Because first of all, Frank Abagnale lied about everything. Second of all, Frank Abagnale is about 77 years old. And believe you me, I do not want to be doing this shit when I am 77 years old. I'm 54. I don't want to be doing this stuff at 54 years of age. I don't want to be the guy that continues to talk about cybercrime and identity theft when I no longer know anything about it.
Many FBI agents based in populated cities with a high cost of living are struggling to make ends meet, forcing them to make long commutes or double up in apartments, according to the Bureau and Justice Department officials. FBI agents have little say in where they are placed once they graduate from the academy, and typically come to the Bureau as a second career, and often take a pay cut to start. The Agents Association is pressing for a housing allowance to support those workers who pay steep rents or mortgages. They are asking for $165 million to be included in the Justice Department's 2025 budget to pay for a pilot program.
Turns out the FBI is having some difficulties, the agents are having some difficulties in paying their rent or paying their mortgages. I honestly don't know how we have a country where we have the problems that we have when dealing with the people who are trying to protect our society and keep us all safe, whether that be military or law enforcement. I don't understand that. I'm very fortunate. I get to talk at Quantico every now and then. The first trip that I took to Quantico, it was a very humbling experience. I got to see the cadets there, and I got to see the best and brightest in the United States that were giving up lucrative careers simply to do the right damn thing. And for them to be, for these agents, and there's roughly 37,000 FBI employees, for these employees to have problems making ends meet when they're trying to protect our society, it goes beyond the pale. It really does. And I know the FBI gets a bad rap by a lot of people these days, but that's not the normal agent that's doing anything improper. All right. The agents that I know, and I know quite a few, are outstanding human beings. They truly are. Law enforcement as a whole. Coming to find out, when I was committing crime, law enforcement agents were not the friendliest in the world. When one stops committing crime, I found out pretty quickly law enforcement stops being assholes at that point in time. We've got to do better as a society. We do. We've got to do better with our military. We've got to do better with law enforcement and taking care of the people who take care of us. Brian?
O.J. Simpson, who died at the age of 76 on April 10th following a cancer diagnosis, had been ordered to pay the Goldman and Brown families $33.5 million after he was found liable in a wrongful death lawsuit in 1997. David Cook, who represents Ron's father, Fred Goldman, told People that their family has not seen that money owed, and it has since grown due to interest. Cook said that the family is looking at hiring attorneys in Nevada, Florida, and California to determine what can be done. He said the first step is figuring out where Simpson's money will go after his death and figuring out how much money he is passing on.
O.J. Simpson died the other day. I am 54. My wife is 58. And my two sons, the youngest, of course, he was not around when the O.J. Simpson trial was going on. And we sat down and we tried to explain to him what a cultural event that trial was. I was at university at that point in time, and during every single break, on your days off, every TV and the student center, everything else was tuned to the O.J. Simpson trial. Of course, he was found not guilty, and I was talking to Carson about that, and looking back, really, there was a couple of fatal flaws. Of course, one was Mark Furman, LAPD cop who was a bit of a racist at that point in time. Another was the LAPD as a whole. They had a bit of some difficulties with some, excessive force, stuff like that as well. But I think the main thing that, to me, looking back, two things happened to that trial that really determined the outcome. The first was the prosecution wanted O.J. Simpson to try on the glove. And if you look back, you can find this stuff on YouTube of O.J. Of course, he's got like a glove on top of that because it's evidence. So he's trying to put on the glove, and guess what? It doesn't fit. He's standing there in front of the jury, pulling, tugging, everything else, and he even says it in front of the jury. I mean, he's playing it up. He says it in front of the jury. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. So that was the first thing. The second thing is at closing arguments, and I still remember this, at closing arguments, the defense had like this poster board that they brought up, and they were talking to the jury, and the poster board had two categories. It said beyond a reasonable doubt and reasonable doubt. And they went through every single thing that the prosecution had argued, and they kept saying, is that beyond a reasonable doubt? No, 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 no. And altogether, to me, looking back now, that ended in that not guilty verdict. Of course, O.J. later on decides he's going to commit a burglary or a robbery, I guess, and gets a lot of prison time on that. Probably the prison time was, for the murder. Whether the guy did it or not, and I honestly don't know. I don't. I think the evidence was there to support a conviction. I think that the prosecution absolutely did not argue the case properly, and they had several screw-ups. Meanwhile, O.J. Simpson had a literal dream team of defense attorneys. But the thing is that we've got a woman that was murdered a man that was murdered. And we've got these surviving families of both of those victims, and they will never be made whole. Money is a sad replacement for the loss of a loved one, especially when that loved one is murdered. And I just think it's a very sad situation overall. All right, on today's Criminal Insight, I'm actually going to bring in Jesse Gossman to help talk me through this as well, because I've not processed it all and I've not worked my way through it all either. Jesse, let's bring you in right now, because I want to talk about a conversation that I had on a podcast just about 3 or 4 days ago when we were talking about people who were disenfranchised and how sometimes that leads to the commission of crime. And I kind of would like to get your thoughts on that as well. You're a law enforcement officer, and I have a great deal of respect for you. And I think that you can provide some insight into that I simply cannot.
I guess when you're talking about disenfranchised people or people that may not have the same opportunities in life, sometimes they fall into a life of crime, just by happenstance. I think, when we've talked in the past, there's a difference in somebody that makes a bad decision one day and tries to recover from it and straightens their life out. And then other people that just go down that road and become predators,
I agree. And that's the, I have to admit, I forgot the gentleman's name that I was on his podcast, but we started talking about cybercrime, and it veered off pretty quickly into, what causes people to commit crime. And he came up with this idea of disenfranchisement of, people in, like I'm from Eastern Kentucky, and, we're pretty poor there. And some of us, me, my mom, some of those family members, some of us do scams and hustles and fraud and commit crime. I'm not quite sure that I ever consciously viewed myself as committing crime in order to escape my environment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was part of the conversation that we were having, not just people in Eastern Kentucky, but you take people in these ethnic areas where, they're slinging dope on the street corner, or, that the entire area is known for crime. I get that they're disenfranchised. I do. I know that people in Eastern Kentucky are disenfranchised, but I'm not convinced that is the motivation of committing crime, because I look back at my history and I never really thought about my commission of crimes as getting out of, the economic area that I was in.
I don't even know if it's a matter of getting out necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I think in some scenarios, it's the culture that some people grow up in, and it becomes culturally acceptable to do crimes.
Right.
And so it takes, somebody with a handout to help people out of those scenarios sometimes, or sometimes it takes people with very strong convictions to stay above that,
I like that word, convictions, because that's, as a matter of fact, I just did an episode talking about the power of conviction. And it's something that's really just recently just hit me. These convictions that you have. It's I talked about on another show. I talked about you can't have two masters. When I chose to try to turn my life around, I understood at that point, hey, you can't, or I can't keep dabbling in committing crimes until I go completely legal. You have to choose one master, because if you're dabbling with crime, trying to turn your life around, then that's kind of a recipe for failure. You're not going to stop committing crime. You're always going to have that as your support. So I was talking about convictions, and I was talking to this guy about disenfranchised criminals or people that commit crime. And I mentioned to him as well, over the past 8 months, I've helped law enforcement. We've arrested like 300 people, Telegram fraudsters, all these refund guys. And come to find out, a significant demographic of those people that we arrested, they were not disenfranchised. They were not poor. They came from very good, well-to-do families, and many of them were at very good, high-dollar schools at that point in time. They were just simply committing these crimes because they could, and because they were bored, and because they had fun doing it.
Yeah, once the money comes easy, and they I'm sure that becomes addictive.
Yeah.
And once they figure these different scams out or ways that they can get away with it, yeah, I mean they'll double down on that. And so the idea that anyone's going to commit crime for the purpose of escaping their roots or escaping the scenario they're in is probably flawed. Because
I think so too.
Once they start committing that crime, I mean that's what they're going to do. I mean that's why sometimes it is a rough pill to swallow when you get arrested or when you get caught up like that. But some people, that can be what they need to realize that they're at the bottom of a dead end.
I mean, that's what I needed. I mean, I think everyone would agree that Brett Johnson absolutely needed to go to prison. I think that myself. I know that prison did me a world of good, and I also know that if I hadn't went, that I would not have stopped committing crime at all. And certainly I was out of Eastern Kentucky. I had stolen a good amount of money, and I had no intentions of ever stopping. And I lied to everybody, Jesse. I mean, that's. I look back at my history of crime. I was a complete liar. I stole from everyone. That idea of a moral compass of you reach that hierarchy of crime where you're not victimizing mom and pop stores or individuals. I think that's a complete lie, man. I victimized everyone that I possibly could profit from. Every single person. I lied to everyone as well. I mean, it was a despicable existence. And these days I try to turn my life around, and I look at these people who are committing crime, and I try to talk to them sometimes, but it really falls on deaf ears. And I remember when I was first caught and I was working with the Secret Service and I was busily ripping them off and screwing them over, they were trying to do the right thing and giving me that chance to turn my life around, and it fell on deaf ears with me as well. I guess the reason I wanted to ask you about the disenfranchisement and commission of crime is, your law enforcement background. What do you think it takes to get someone rehabilitated? Someone who is that either, starting out. So you got the people who start out in crime who aren't doing it really well at the beginning. And then you've got the more expert type of people. And I would like to get some insight from you about what it takes to get these people to turn their lives around, to give up the ghost of crime and just do the right damn thing.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's a big question.
I don't know that I have the answer to that. I guess I can give you some of my thoughts. I think everybody's different, and you might get a kid. I remember being on patrol, and there, especially as a young cop on patrol, you arrest some kid that's maybe 15, 16, selling drugs. And I remember trying to have those heart-to-hearts, with them, like, hey man, you need to straighten up.
Right.
And it just falling on deaf ears, but it may have fallen on deaf ears, like to me, but you never know what stuck. And I can say that I have, later years, as a detective, when I've had people in the interview room speaking with them, sometimes there's people that are cold, and you can tell like they're going along to get along. They're playing the game, when we're talking, and they're not taking it to heart. But there's others that you can tell that, especially those that are drug addicted, right, and that are really down and out. And sometimes you kind of see it on their face where this is their kind of come to Jesus moment where they realize, man, I've really fucked up. And here I am talking to this detective, and I don't know what's going to happen to me next. And, I try to be, like when I talk to people, especially in an interview like that, like I'm not just there to to condemn them. I mean, really, I'm there to get information out of them is my goal, right? That's my job. But above and beyond that, if I can talk to them like a human being and let them know, hey, you're going to have to answer for what you did. But hey, today's a new day. You can start from here where you're going to have to answer for this, but I hope you can move forward. And when you get this settled, that you can turn your life around. And I have to think that some of the people, I've talked to like that have at least had the intent in that moment. What happens later when the addiction grips them or something else, it's hard to say.
Well, it's interesting that you said that, because when I was a criminal, I still refer to myself as when I was committing crime. When I was committing crime, I viewed law enforcement as the adversary. They're out to get me. And one of the things that I have found, and I've been very fortunate that I'm able to talk to people like you and other law enforcement officers as well, federal, state, local. The vast majority of law enforcement officers have that same, I guess, demeanor that you do of hey, I hope that you're able to turn your life around. It's nothing personal. We just have to get you off the street because you're victimizing people. It's to see law enforcement where it's not a grudge. It's not, like I said, it's not personal. It's just, hey, this is what has to be done at this point, but we really hope that you're going to be all right. And that's, I think that makes a world of difference. I do. And I think that you're absolutely right. Even if it's just in that moment that you make that connection, it seems to me that later on, if those people do decide to change their lives, that moment comes back to them, that they remember that. And I really appreciate you doing that. I truly do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I hope that happens. I hope people have thought about it later on and, taken some of those words to heart.
So let's talk about crypto.
All right, let's do it.
So I did get ripped off. Yes, I did.
You got ripped off?
Use, don't even start with me, Brian.
Oh, shit.
You didn't fall in love with someone, did you?
No, it's not a stripper. So, ding. So what happened was, of course, everyone know. I posted on LinkedIn, posted on Twitter. I did really well starting out in crypto. I did really well, and I'm up significantly right now from a $4,000 investment. I have been hit not once but twice by scammers. The first, when I was doing stuff for law enforcement, I was using this thing called Trust Wallet, which I hate Trust Wallet. I truly do. The thing is I had not used my Trust Wallet for, I don't know, a year and a half, something like that. So I reinstalled it on a different device. And there was this token that was coming out. I think it was called, it's Katamoto was the token. So what happened was Katamoto, right now we're in a crypto bull run. Meme coins are these coins that have absolutely no value except what people agree upon. But enough people agree on these things that sometimes you see 1,000x return on I won't say an investment, I'll say a gamble. You see 1,000x return on a gamble. So I'm like, okay, how do I get this? Because it's on the base chain. And on the pre-sale, it made you jump through these hoops and everything. So I was like, okay, I'll just use my old Trust Wallet as kind of a burner wallet. So dipshit Brett reinstalls his old Trust Wallet. Instead of coming up with a brand new Trust Wallet, I do the old one. Have $2,000 worth of Ethereum sent over there. As soon as I have it sent over there, it shows it arriving, and then it shows it immediately bouncing to some other fucking wallet. And I'm like, what the actual fuck? Come to find out, Trust Wallet has been having significant problems with draining. So you get, I don't know if they're brute forcing the key phrases. I don't know if it's, if I had at one point downloaded malware, which is probably what happened, but I lost $2,000 to that. The other scheme is, this guy was having these calls. He was saying he was running this fake Telegram channel, and I didn't know that the coin that he was saying to everyone, his 33,000 members, that he was recommending them to buy. I didn't realize that the coin was something that he owned, that he had pumped up, and that he was the only one that was able to sell the damn thing. So I think I lost like $300 there. So I'm down like 2,300, but I'm up significantly overall. I am, and I've got a few utility tokens, but most of my profits right now, and I have cashed out. Most of my profits have come from these meme coins. I wanted to talk to you, Jesse, because you know a lot. I think you know a lot more about these crypto schemes than I do, and certainly tell me about Block Audit. That I guess we can start there.
So, as we discussed, my full-time job, I've been a cop for 17 years. Most of that time I've done economic crimes and financial crimes, fraud. So really about maybe 5 years ago, we started seeing these crypto cases, and I'm guilty of it, just like all the other cops out there now. That I get that case, and it's like, well, I don't know what this is. I know what crypto is, but it's like one person. We got to report. Like, it's gone. There's nothing we can do.
Right.
Send them to IC3, the Internet Crime Complaint Center. And from a law enforcement perspective, that's like a cheat code for us, because hey, it's off my back. I can send it to IC3. The victim's going to be, if not happy, at least they're going to be, feel like somebody took the report or is going to follow up with it. Right. Unfortunately, what most people don't understand is that IC3 really isn't an investigative body. It's really just a data repository. And that goes and yeah, it's very useful for intelligence purposes, but no one's really going to be following up for the most part, unless you've lost tens of millions of dollars or it's a big organized fraud.
Right.
So really about probably 2 to 3 years ago, probably sometime between 2 and 3 years ago, we finally buckled down. My partner, Alex, and I, we just kept getting these, and man, they're really growing. It really took off, I think, in 2020 when everyone was stuck at home and started buying crypto, and the rates started going through the roof, and
sure,
no one wanted to miss out. So we finally just buckled down and tried to figure it out. Watched a lot of videos, tried to find any training we could. Didn't have access to any kind of commercial forensic tools, and started open source tracing using the open block explorers, downloading those, putting it into Excel, and trying to trace through Excel. So it was a very cumbersome process, which leads to basically we decided, hey, we don't know how this is going to work. There's something here because there's so many people losing money. So really the website started out, we started the blockaudit.com, and we figured, hey, let's just put all of the resources, all the free resources that we have found to be useful, put them all in one place, because it ended up when we were, doing these investigations where we would have in our browser, favorites page. I mean, we ended up having like 30 different tabs, and then we couldn't find anything when like, hey, what was that website we could use to do this or to do that?
Right.
So that's kind of what started. We put a website together. We put all of those resources in one spot. And really the goal was, hey, if we're doing this, there's other detectives out there that are going through the same problems we're going through. Let's make a one spot, and we can share this with other law enforcement and kind of guide them through that same process to help them get up to speed so they don't have all the growing pains we had. And so it started like that, and now we've kind of rolled it into consulting work for law enforcement, forensic accountants, and attorneys, so we can try to kind of be a force multiplier for them, so that they don't have to just turn people away to IC3. They can actually, with our assistance, start working these and help victims.
I like that. So looking at people who are scammed through crypto, what types of schemes are we seeing? What's the most common types of schemes that are out there?
Yeah. So all the old ones, they're back and with a vengeance, right? So anything that anyone had ever lost money for, where they were told to put cash into a magazine and mail it someplace,
right,
or to get gift cards, prepaid cards, it's all back, right? So what do we got? We got, hey, I'm the police, and you missed court, so you have a warrant for your arrest, so you can pay me. Your grandson was locked up in a Mexican jail. You didn't pay your taxes. You name it. Like all of those scams where they used to try to get people to get gift cards,
Right.
they're all back with a vengeance because these Bitcoin ATMs are everywhere. So now they can convince people, hey, there's, just take that money and go deposit it into this Bitcoin ATM to pay off your bond, or a whole host of different scenarios. Another common one we see is
so hold on. So talking about Bitcoin ATMs, how common is that in these schemes?
Oh, massive. It's absolutely
Okay.
massive. Yeah. So and those tend to be the lower dollar ones. So typically those are going to be, I don't know, maybe 1,500 on the low end to maybe 30,000 on the high end.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it's just a quick way that they can get these marks to hand over the money. And rather than having to try to either create a mule network through the mail for cash,
Right.
or create another network to try to monetize those gift cards. I mean, it's just straight cash.
So you cut out the middleman, you go straight to Bitcoin. You don't have to have the money mules. You don't have to worry about cashing out gift cards, anything else like that. You've got Bitcoin immediately. Then you can send that to an exchange, bridge hop, whatever you want to do, and go from there, right?
Yeah. And so now there's all these apps, that everyone's using. Cash App is a big one.
Cash App's a big one.
Bad guys like to use that because it's easy. They can get it. Right. And really, you don't even need the Bitcoin ATM for that, right? So a lot of these people will convince people that these bad guys will convince their marks to send money straight from their bank account to Cash App. Same pay for those same types of scams.
Right.
And then the bigger ones, the one that is just, the elephant in the room, that is, just destroying the elderly, and it's this pig butchering is what they call it. And basically, it's really just a Ponzi scheme. It's a internet cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme. But
explain to me what pig butchering is for the audience.
Yeah. So basically, it's if you've ever gotten one of these text messages that is just a random text message that tries to engage with you, or really one of the huge ways they're going after people is on dating sites. They just start to build a relationship, right? And they're not even in a hurry. I've had some that go 2-3 months before they have the first ask, Right. And so what'll happen is a lot of times they build up this relationship, and then the bad guy will start kind of dropping hints. Be like, hey, here's this new watch I got. Look at this Rolex. Or, hey, I'm going on this cruise. Or, hey, here's this, my private jet I rented. They just try to show and flaunt a lot of money, all fake, of course. But it begs the question, or it kind of builds confidence in their mark. And like, wow, this person really has their stuff together. They know what they're doing. And then that's where it comes. Hey, how did you make your money? Or they'll let them know, hey, I want to share with you my success. I've invested in crypto, and you've heard all the stories of all these people that make all this money. Well, I know how to do it, obviously, because I'm flying on the private jet and have the Rolex and everything. So that's how they lure them in. And then what they'll do is they'll send them to a website, and the website will be it's just a fake website. It's basically just a video game. Okay. And they will start to invest. The way it got its name, pig butchering, the idea is that you start to fatten the pig, right? So you let them invest. So let's say they're skittish at first, and maybe they invest $1,000. And then on their platform that they're logging into, they see within a week their $1,000 became $1,700.
So the scammers set up a fake exchange, and that fake exchange, however much money the victim puts in, the fake exchange makes it look like their investment's skyrocketing.
Yeah, and it's not really an exchange. It's more like they consider it like they try to present it like a investment platform. Okay. And there's a few different ways they'll do it. Like they have either you get paired with a more experienced trader, and so they call it copy trading. And so you have to match their investments. So on the fake website that you're looking at, your copy trader will say, hey, we're making a $5,000 buy on this particular coin. You have to put that in as well. And then when they do, the profits will show, right? So they have now built a relationship with their trader, and now they have all these profits. And now let's say they have $10,000 in that account, they might still be skittish. They have 10,000 in the fake account. It's all fake money. They'll actually let them take money out.
That was going to be one of my questions if they did that.
Yeah. So they'll let them take money out. They're not going to let them take, they're obviously not going to let them take all their money out. Not even their, initial investment, right? So if you invested 2,000, maybe they'll let you take out 500, 750, right? And they'll have an excuse why you can't take the rest out, because it's tied. There's a time limit on this, or, hey, well, maybe you can take more out, but you're going to pay a 50% penalty. They'll make it to where they can't take any more than that out. But to all the naysayers that may be around that mark that are saying, oh no, that's a scam, they pull out their 750 and say, hey, see, it's not a scam.
Right.
I was able to get my money back, and then they're running to the bank because now they think they have a way to print money. They just made 200% returns in a week, so now they're going to take a mortgage out on their house. They're going to drain their savings.
Right.
And I've got people that have lost upwards of $5 million doing this.
$5 million.
Yeah.
Is there and I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there a common victim in these types of schemes, an age, a demographic, anything like that? Or is it everyone?
No, there's really not. So I mean, the elderly are typically victimized. Just in my experience, the elderly seem to be falling for a lot of the traditional, the smaller ones. Again, well, you know what? The elderly have the money too, the retirement. Right. So they're falling. I mean, they're falling for these as well. But you would think that it's just the elderly because they don't understand crypto, or they don't understand what this thing is, or that it's from the romance side, because there's a huge romance component, and that's getting a lot of the younger people. But man, that's even getting the elderly too. Like some of these people that are 70 years old have 30-year-old boyfriends, with a six-pack, and they think they're in love, and it's, you think at that age, man, everybody wants love, and
right.
If you're lonely, they're taking advantage of it,
Well, and I get it. I do. I mean, I got to see, my dad lived with me the last year of his life, and the man was, even though he was in the house, he was an extremely lonely person. And I try to, if I see someone that's a senior citizen, I'm not the person that ignores that person. I go by that. There's a John Prine song called "Hello in There," and it talks about people getting old, and if nothing else, just say hello to them, let them know that they exist. And I look at romance schemes. I look at a lot of senior citizens. They don't have anybody, and I don't know if I don't think it's always just romance. I think it's companionship, friendship, just someone to talk to. And then you've got these predators, these pig butchers, who take advantage of that, who prey on these people. I honestly can't think of a more asinine type of crime than befriending somebody who just would like someone to talk to, and then taking advantage of that person and stealing every single thing that they've got.
Yeah. So, and kind of to put a point on that, and it's, I kind of make light of it, like, these 7-year-olds have a 30-year-old boyfriend, and,
sure.
And to some extent, we're all like, hey, what were you thinking? And I try not to do that, but
right.
One of the most difficult things, I think a thing that's kind of hard to understand from an outsider, and I've been let into that world because, from the law enforcement side, one of the ways we conduct the investigation is, once this happens, I'm like, okay, look, I get there's probably a lot of communications. You're probably going to be extremely embarrassed to let me see those, but as part of the investigation, I have to figure out what happened. And so a lot of times they'll download their entire WhatsApp history, and I read through it. I'll spend 5 hours reading through it so I can trying to find wallet addresses or trying to find
sure.
any other clues that might be in there. But you see basically a romance story, right? And you see these people that are grabbing onto, they're drowning and they're grabbing onto a life, vest, right? And that's what it sounds like in these. And so a lot of times when they have found out that they've been scammed, it's not just that they lost their life savings. And to be honest, I don't even know that that's what they're so upset about. Okay. They feel like they just lost the love of their life. Like, because these people are talking about getting married, moving in together all the time. Like it's like every single one of them is the same. They're sharing very private photos with them. Right. That becomes a huge barrier to report because they're embarrassed. And not only are they embarrassed, but sometimes I've seen where it turns south and the bad guy will actually start to threaten, to display those photos that these people shared, right. Thinking that they're with, this person they love. So they've not only just lost all their money, they feel stupid about it, and they've just lost, the love of their life, they think. And in their mind, this was a real person. This was the person they were going to, ride off into the sunset with. And they're finding out that it's gone.
Honestly, I'd never even considered that angle of it. I really hadn't, but you're absolutely right. I mean, that to me, the money hurts, but that, if you really think that you're in a relationship and you fully believe that, to find out that you've not been, that you've been used and that it was all just a scam. Jesus Christ, man. I mean, that, I think that's a little bit more important than the money to a lot of people.
It is absolutely devastating. And on more than one occasion, a lot of times the way that these calls will come in is that the victim thinks that the trading platform went bad, right?
Okay.
So the victim will come in and say, hey, my copy trader or my broker, this thing ripped me off. Me and my fiance, were victimized because, of course, the guy that's been doing this over the communications that they think is their, long lost love. Mm-hmm. They're not looking at him as the bad guy. Right. They think that this platform, and and we had talked about it via email. When I kind of like separated, people into different categories. When you asked me about criminals, and I said, like probably 90% are just, scavengers and, just things of opportunity and hopefully they get themselves right, repent for what they've done. And then you have another 5%, let's say, that find ways to take advantage of systems, and like I said, I mean, that's very intriguing. And it's kind of, I think what your background was. And then you have these people, this last 5% that I mean, are straight sociopaths that find a way to take advantage of people and then step on the gas, So in this case, like when I'm telling you that you have these people that will come and when they're reporting it to us, say, me and my husband got ripped off, or my, fiance got ripped off. And I have to tell them, no, your fiance is the bad guy. This guy's all fake. Have you ever met him in real life? And they start to get mad at me.
Sure.
And then when I read those messages, this person that's down and out, their supposed fiance starts talking about how he lost all his money as well in the scam. And, hey, I really need some money in order to pay my rent or so I can come see you because now I have no more money. And we were going to ride off into the sunset together, but I have to pay this bill or that bill. Can you send me another $10,000? Or wow. Can you send me $10,000? So they try to take advantage of them even after they've lost everything. And they're sharing, they're seeing right into the soul of these victims. And then they're trying to rip out every last penny they can. And I've had to convince, and it's sometimes taken 2-3 hours of sitting down with some of these victims, and they're mad at me because they don't like what I'm saying, that I'm saying that the person they love is a fraud. Right. And so, I will have to do reverse image searches on the images that were sent to them. I will have to try and, trace out transactions where they said it was going to a particular exchange and show them, nope, look, the second you put that money in, it was out, it was gone.
Right.
And so it takes a lot of convincing sometimes just to make them realize that, the person they are in love with is actually the bad guy.
First of all, thank you for walking me through that. I get that criminal background of mine. I get the thing of getting someone to think that they are part of an investment platform, getting them to invest, and then stealing the money. I get that. I don't like it, but I get it. What you described of that scammer then telling the victim, who they've convinced that they love, that scammer then telling the victim, well, I've been a victim too. I've lost every single thing. I don't have the money, but I still love you. And can you help me? We're going to be together. Can you help me? I don't have money to pay the rent. I'm going to be homeless soon. I've lost every single thing. Is there any possible way that you can help me? For them to go that extra mile, geez, man.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that earns the name pig butchering right there.
I mean, just another example that's kind of drive it home. So a young guy, he was in his 20s. Him and his fiance had saved up to buy a house, and I think they had about $30,000 saved up. And he got turned on to one of these copy traders in crypto, and so he decided to take some money, invest it. He got his returns, didn't tell his soon-to-be wife about it, ended up taking all that money, lost all that money, thinking he was going to be the hero,
Right.
and try to get the house because they were going to get married and move into this house. It obviously fell apart. He thought his copy trader that he was, tied to in this scam, he thought he was victimized as well. And so those communications were the two of them, basically being upset at the trading platform together. And, going through his messages, when he shared all his messages with me, it stood out to me. There was one point where he's basically out in the woods with a gun, and he was going to kill himself.
Jesus.
And he's talking to this guy because his wife, or his soon-to-be wife, ended up, they obviously had a blowout that he used the money without her permission. And so they broke up, so he thought he had nothing left to live for.
Right.
This scammer basically talked him, out of killing himself. And the very next sentence, 10 minutes later, after he convinced this guy to go back home, was, hey, I need you to send me $10,000 so we can make this all right. And that just shows, the level of depravity that some of these people have,
Yeah.
And for the most part, it seems we've got our locals, but for the most part, it seems most of it's coming from like the Chinese out of Southeast Asia, as well as, then you have your Nigerians as well.
Sure. So let me ask you about that. And I've read the same thing coming from China, areas like that. I also read that there's a lot of human trafficking that goes on with these pig butchering schemes. Is that real or not?
Yeah, to the extent that I haven't been able to verify it through my own sources, but through working with other people and hearing, especially some of my counterparts on the federal side. So one of the avenues that this is going is that there are advertisements for jobs, like in Thailand. So a lot of these people are responding to jobs. Foreign nationals are coming to, I guess, Thailand, Laos, that area, thinking that they're going to have a job. And then their passports are taken and they're put up in these huge complexes where they have to basically run a call center, and that's a tragedy, And so from that perspective, some of these people, that are committing these crimes, maybe they're in fear for their life,
Right.
I don't know. But that's a huge problem,
No,
that
I agree. And
is being addressed.
And I've got federal friends too, and they tell me the same thing. That being said, maybe it's just that I have trouble accepting that. it's got to be happening. Because I mean, Aaron West has reported on it. Wired Magazine reported on it. You've got federal people that have told you that kind of stuff's happening as well. My question is, and I know that you probably can't answer that, but percentage wise, what do you think the breakdown of these pig butchers are that are forcing people into running call centers and scamming mom and pops compared to those people who are more than willing to sign up for these call centers because they're coming from a very poor country, or they're destitute or disenfranchised, and they see that as a way of making some money?
I think a very large percentage of that traditional pig butchering thing, I think that is driven largely by organized Chinese crime.
Okay.
And I think that they are employing, just by the sheer numbers, the massive amount of people. And when it comes to the Nigerians, it's not the same pattern. You can kind of tell when you look at it on chain too, like the cash out, the way it's cashed out. So
Okay.
the Nigerians, you're able to identify a group of maybe 4 or 5 people, whereas when these ones that deal with Southeast Asia, it tends to splinter into a crazy amount of mules, just
Okay.
mules. And then a lot of times these mules are from different countries. So you got to wonder, well, how are they all connected? And so that kind of fits in line with the idea that they are foreign nationals coming there to get a job. And you mentioned Aaron West. She's done an amazing job setting up the React Task Force, which, I became aware of, and, was on one of their first calls like a year and a half ago. And that was a huge benefit in trying to figure a lot of these things out. When we had linked up with her and able to share that knowledge that they have there was huge. And I know she's
Right.
been overseas and confirmed some of these things.
There's more schemes out there than just pig butchering, and Fortunately, I've got a list because my ass would forget a lot of that. But initial coin offerings, talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically a dime a dozen. So when you talk about any of these new coins, right, the shit coins, meme coins, whatever you want to call them, it's all an idea. You're just buying into somebody's idea,
Right.
And there's always going to be a sales pitch about why their coin is better or why their coin is more interesting. And I mean, you can play the hype and you
Right.
can make some money. You're just taking money from somebody else that's falling for the hype. Is all it is. It's there's nothing behind them. So what'll happen is someone will come up with a white paper and say, hey, here's the next going to be the next great coin.
Right.
Everyone puts money into it, and they cash out, and it's done.
And I mean, that you're right. I mean, I was getting a lot of information from Reddit, which is useless, and recently moved over to Discord, to Telegram. And there's a lot, and I mean a lot, of initial coin offerings every single day. The one that I saw last week, which was very interesting, was called Pat. So the big chains right now, I'm sure you know this as well, the darling chains for this bull run on crypto are Solana and Base. That's the big ones right now. The coin that I mentioned, Pat, was on the Base chain, and it turns out it was what's called a slow rug. So the developer artwork was good, community was fairly strong before the token comes out, and of course when it comes out, what happens is the developer disappears. He cashes everything out as fast as he possibly can. The token went up to a market cap of about $10 million. After he cashes out, I think right now the market cap is at 400K. It dipped down to about 230K, and it keeps fluctuating back and forth because you've got the cult of crypto there. You've got these people who are such believers that it's got to work. It's got to work. The dev will be back. He'll be just fine. He's not ripping us off at all. So you've got those people that are doing that. You've got the people who aren't aware of the scheme, that simply see that the token has bounced up to that $10 million market cap. Now it's down, and they think they're getting the token at a bargain all of a sudden. And meanwhile, the dev walks away with a fairly good paycheck and rinse and repeat over and over again with different tokens. And I appreciate what you said about, you're right. I mean, it's one of these things where you are buying in to someone's belief and opinion, and you're writing that up, and hopefully you are able to cash out before you lose your ass, because someone is going to lose their ass on it. Absolutely, especially the meme tokens that are out there.
Yeah, everyone saw what happened with Dogecoin, and so everyone thinks that that was a fluke. And
Right.
again, it was like the only the only reason it even went up is just because people thought it was funny. People like, yeah, I mean, a lot of these things that they don't have any real utility, more so than the big tokens that are out there, right? So I mean, I believe there is utility in Bitcoin and on the Ethereum chain. And obviously there's utility in USDT and USDC, the ability to move money quickly for low value or for a low cost. Yeah, when you get into all these other coins, though, it's all just next person trying to make, a quick buck on, trying to copy that.
I'd agree. And one of the things that you see, like Ethereum has a cost that you have to pay gas fees and everything else. Solana is very cheap. To come up with a token on Solana, you can go over to pump.fun, and it costs like 0.2 sols to come up with a brand new token, which I think right now a Solana token is going for, I think, 160, 170 right now. So 0.2, so what, $35? You can come up with a brand new token. What about liquidity pools and the fraud there?
I think there's some legitimate ones out there. So for those that don't really understand it, one good example would be when you have like a bridge, right? So a bridge is basically you're sending tokens from one chain over to another chain. So in order to perform that function, there has to be kind of an algorithm that if it gets low on one of those tokens, it needs those tokens. So you get to pay a premium for those tokens in your trading. So each of those different chains will have a liquidity pool. And so you can basically put your assets in there and you can take advantage of that arbitrage basically. So when it comes to that in particular, or the idea of liquidity pools, and that's just an example of how one might be utilized, it does make sense. And I think people have been successful that, but you have to be very careful because there's a whole bunch of fake ones, and it's, if you think, if basically it can be just an investment scam. Like it can say, hey, you're going to put money into this liquidity pool. Here's how liquidity pools work, and then go into greater detail than what I just explained. But on the surface, it makes sense. Like you can understand, okay, I understand why revenue is being generated. I understand why my money can make a profit because of the function that this liquidity pool is doing. Well, that doesn't mean where you put your money is a real liquidity pool. Like you could just be sending it straight to a fraudster, and that's where you run into trouble.
That makes sense. And so what else have I got? I've got wallet hacks, which I've mentioned that before. That's where I lost a couple of grand in Ethereum. Problems with fake tokens?
If it's not like a complete scam token, kind of like your IPO, one place I've really run into these fake tokens or the way they're being used, and they become a pain when you're tracing, because sometimes there's like a USDT, fake token. It's easy to see, like if you look at the address, the smart contract address, to know what you're working with, and a lot of the forensic tools will mark it, and say, hey, this is the real one, this is not. But I am guilty of, when I'm trying to trace out some of these things, being 10 hops down and then wait a second, I've been following a fake token this whole time.
Sure.
So the way they're scamming with it, I don't, they will send out these fake tokens. And I think the idea is they're trying to trick people into returning some of this money or transacting with that wallet address. That is a duplicate of the last transaction they did, right? So if you send 50,000 USDT and then you get 50,000 USDT back into your wallet, but it's the fake one,
right?
I guess in some scenarios they've been successful in people just not verifying addresses. That's really the only way I've seen them used, though.
I saw, so what I'm seeing right now, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing, and it just occurred to me as you were walking through that. So I use a variety of different wallets, like most people do that are in crypto right now. Sometimes I'll open up my wallet and I'll see an airdrop. So for those who don't know, an airdrop is one of these things where these tokens mysteriously appear in your wallet. Sometimes those airdrops are even legitimate. Most of the time, they are not. So what happens is you'll get, you've bought in your wallet, you've got however many tokens, legitimate tokens you've got. Like you may have a couple of grand in Ethereum or $3,000 or $4,000 in Solana or a few $100s in Bitcoin, what have you. So the scammer will actually drop in one of these tokens, like give you several million of these tokens. And the idea being that they've suddenly appeared in your wallet, you will click on the token, and then that token, once you start to interact with that token, it's set up in such a way that it allows the scammer to drain the other tokens that are in that wallet. Maybe you have to connect your wallet to some outside website, something like that. But however, the contract is set up with the fake token that's been sent in, that it allows the scammer to actually steal every single thing that you've got in your wallet at that point.
Yeah, I have run into these where people have connected wallets to a, even from like inside, Coinbase or one of their legitimate exchanges, where they're told to copy a URL to put in to connect their wallet, drain everything in their wallet.
Before we dive into the next bit, I wanted to talk about some of these, or actually just mention some of the scope of crypto crime. So I'm going to throw out these numbers. 3.94 billion in crypto-related investments in 2023. 17,823, and this is all IC3, Internet Crime Complaint Center. 17,823 romance con complaints, 39,570 investment complaints, 14,190 government impersonation complaints, 48,000 extortion complaints, 15,000 employment scam complaints, 298,000 phishing complaints, and 37,560 tech support complaints. So fraud is alive and well on the internet, and certainly 3.94 billion in crypto-related investment complaints just in 2023 alone. I mean, that's a huge number of fraud and scams. If you're looking at with your work with Block Audit, with your work in law enforcement, what advice would you give someone that has absolutely no experience in crypto, yet they're reading on Reddit or in the news, or their friends have told them that the money to be made in crypto? What advice would you give people that are they're looking to dive into the crypto environment?
Hey, if you want to have fun with crypto and play the lottery, hey, go for it. But treat it like you're going to the casino. Like take the money that you have to lose, because I mean it's all speculation. And if you don't understand it, if you're not willing to take the time to really understand what it is you're doing, or how there might be predators about, or there might be risks of which you're even unaware, like we just talked about with linking your wallet and it getting drained right there. I mean, there's just a ton of risks that if you really want to invest and be part of it, don't do anything that you're not willing to lose.
I think that's solid advice. I mean, we see a lot of people on all these platforms talk about don't put any more money in than what you're willing to lose, what you're comfortable with losing. And that idea of it being more of a gamble than an investment, I think that's 100% correct. I truly do. It is not like the stock markets. We don't have regulations that work to protect a lot of people. It's kind of the Wild West of throwing your money out there and hoping and praying that you get X amount of returns on that. These days, and you've alluded to that, of there are predators in that environment, and these predators in this environment, they're much better at doing it than you are at protecting yourself. And because of that, I'm this huge advocate of, if you will be to engage in cryptocurrency, if you will be to go down that path, not to do it alone, to find a group of people that you can trust. And I think that's extremely difficult to do in crypto, but I do think you can find those people.
Yeah, you want to be very careful. You don't want to go to some, and especially if someone texts you and says, "Hey, I've got a great group of crypto investors."
Exactly.
Because that's where they're getting a lot of these people. So
absolutely,
I would find somebody and that you can touch.
Absolutely. I agree completely with that. You came on because I had made that blanket statement of, hey, you lose your money, you ain't getting it back. And you said that is not always the case. So talk to me about what it takes for someone who has lost money in one of these schemes to get their money back.
First and foremost, it takes law enforcement involvement, right?
Okay.
Any of these companies that say that they're going to recover your crypto, be skeptical, right? Because yes, it kind of runs the gambit, right? There's kind of two types of recovery companies. There's those that are just outright frauds, and yeah, they may actually trace something, but they're going to promise you the moon, and they cannot deliver anything. There's others that will be upfront and say, listen, I can trace this out, but we can't guarantee you anything. There's potential to go after. It really depends on the scenario, but in some scenarios, there might be the ability for a civil attorney to go and file lawsuits. But really, the only way anyone's really going to get money back is if they have law enforcement assistance, which is, I commented it to you in the email we talked about, but it's law enforcement agencies that are interested in investigating crypto likely have the ability to investigate crypto.
Sure.
So when you go out and pay your $20,000 for a tracing report and hand it to law enforcement is probably going to take a look at it and file it away somewhere for two reasons. Really, one, they don't know who you are. They don't have a relationship with you, or not with you, but with the tracing company, right? They don't have a relationship with that tracing company. They don't know what this even means, especially if they're not, well-versed with crypto. Secondly, anything that they're going to do, they have to be able to swear to. So if I don't know who this company is that sent me this, I'm not going to put my name in an affidavit and swear to a judge or do the things that it has to do based on what this random company sent in. And that's if you get a detective that's interested in learning something, right? So in that scenario, either you're paying for a tracing report that a crypto competent law enforcement agency isn't going to be able to use, or you're going to pay for a tracing report and give it to a agency that is not interested in working crypto, in which case it's just going to go straight in the garbage anyway.
Sure. So don't do the tracing reports.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, very seldom, unless you have like civil attorneys involved or attorney involved, or, you have law enforcement involvement and they need assistance maybe. But that's kind of where we try to spin that model. And that's why the block audit, what we do is we partner with the law enforcement agencies, right? Because we don't want to charge victims. Like, I don't want to take money from a victim that just lost everything.
Sure.
I don't have the heart for it. And it's something that I believe law enforcement should be doing, and it's time and time again, we've seen where law enforcement is sending people to IC3 and not taking a report and not doing any follow-up. And these law enforcement agencies have a duty to their citizens, and it's to provide police services. So in a lot of these cases, you have hundreds of thousands of dollars that is going completely uninvestigated, and people think the feds are going to investigate it. I can't speak for the rest of the country. I work in South Florida. Unless it's in the tens of millions of dollars, or unless it's some indication of an organized group, the feds are likely going to be looking at it. and time is of the essence. So my biggest advice for people that are experiencing that is go to your local law enforcement and speak to them. Tell them you want the report.
Right.
Now, if they tell you, hey, listen, we don't know how to do this, and then maybe ask that question. Well, if I pay for a private tracer, would you be able to work with them and use that? Then there may be a case where that would be beneficial to you.
Do you think that the problem is that those law enforcement agencies are just not trained on cryptocurrency and the way these schemes work, or what do you think the issue is there?
So it's multifaceted. So law enforcement generally, especially at the local level, is they're running tight. It's a numbers game. How many detectives they have, and how many of a particular crime are they dealing with, right? So the big ones that are going to get attention are obviously all the robberies and chain snatches. Anything that has to do with physical violence is going to get the most attention. When it comes to crypto, or really even economic crimes, most local law enforcement agencies don't have a dedicated economic crimes unit. So it can become cumbersome and confusing for detectives, even when dealing with traditional bank records and getting the subpoenas rose and dealing with that aspect of it. When you throw on the crypto side, or this new problem of crypto, it's easy for them to ignore it because they get to send people to IC3, the Internet Crime Complaint Center. So they can kind of sweep it under the rug. They can send their victim someplace else. And I've talked with some of these police administrators that realize that's what's going on. They realize, and they told this to us when we're trying to obviously solicit our services to them, because they're pleading for it. They want something, right? Because they're like, listen, we know we're sending people to IC3, and we know that they're probably no one's ever going to look at it, but we don't even know where to start. So that's the first problem, is that they're strapped on just time and people. The second problem is you have IC3, and as good as IC3 is, it does become a crutch that law enforcement gets to hide behind. Right. I think IC3 is awesome. I still encourage everyone to report there, but do not report to IC3 in lieu of reporting to your local agency. Right. And then lastly is the cost is the barrier to entry, right? To do a proper investigation, these agencies have to purchase commercial forensic tools, right? So like we partnered with Blockchain Intelligence Group. They're a great company. They have a tool called Clue, which you can use to trace. For any law enforcement that might be listening to this, they're probably the best bang for your buck. Then there's other companies like TRM, which are incredible, the awesome tool, but they're very expensive. These tools can range from $10,000 on the low end to like $80,000. And for a law enforcement agency to put that into their budget, they have to, it isn't going to happen overnight. And where we talk about this, one of the things I hope to see moving forward is more forfeitures, right? Because once you get into these criminal networks and you can show that they're using a network to launder money, and you can actually start going after some of this money. Obviously, you have to pay back victims wherever you can. Right. But if you find these criminal networks and they have assets, I'd like to start seeing more law enforcement do forfeitures on that money. And really, for the exact reason that we're talking about, is if law enforcement starts to see that, hey, this can pay for itself, they will start to make that investment into pursuing this type of criminal investigation.
I mean, it makes sense. It does. I mean, when I was busy ripping off and screwing over the United States Secret Service, at that same time, I forgot who was in charge at that point, but the number one thing was the catchphrase was think seizure first. As soon as you go into a place, what can we seize? What can we seize? What can we seize? And it makes a lot of sense. It really does. The question I've got is, So you take someone that's pulling one of these cryptocurrency schemes. What percentage of those individuals, and I guess we need to backtrack here, in order to seize the money, do they have to go through do the stolen funds have to go through one of these exchanges that law enforcement can contact and have things locked down?
Generally, yes. So
Okay.
there is, I'm sure you've seen what, is going on. DOJ, Department of Justice, has been cracking down on exchanges.
Right.
Whether they're trying to send a message or not, I don't know. It seems like they are sending a message, because we have overseas exchanges that were not, in their view, subject to U.S. law. The DOJ begs to differ. So
Right.
they're trying to exert that kind of authority. Now, a lot of them, it's kind of counterintuitive, but in the U.S., a lot of the U.S.-based ones, there's very strict rules where they have to cooperate with law enforcement, but also that they have to cooperate with law enforcement by the book, right? So there is kind of red tape you have to jump through. There's processes you have to jump through. And yes, they will work with you because they have to, but those processes can gum up the work, right? And it can, what could have been done in a phone call over in an hour with an email sometimes ends up becoming a 3-week to, multi-month process. So the counter side to that coin is, the foreign exchanges are not generally regulated, right, by U.S. law, but that also allows them the freedom to work with law enforcement, to work with U.S. law enforcement, because they're not restricted from doing so.
That makes sense.
I won't say which exchanges are which because I don't want to give anyone ideas or tell them where to go, but there are some exchanges that will work with U.S. law enforcement overseas. And, and there's some new techniques for certain coins that we can potentially go after, even if they're not in an exchange.
I like that. And that was going to be one of the questions I had because, Bitcoin is king. Monero is the privacy token. So I see a lot of chain hopping with people who, they'll have Bitcoin hop over to Monero with the hopes that breaks the line of whatever you want to call it, identification, where you can actually trace that token. So they'll go into Monero or go into some other chain, bridge hop, and then try to obscure where they're finally sending or cashing out from that point in time.
I don't encounter Monero very often. I mean, obviously Monero is the coin of the dark web of criminal network. The criminals are going to use that.
Right.
But when we're chasing victim money, right, it's not going to Monero because one, it's difficult to get Monero. You can't get a victim to go get Monero. It's
difficult. Right.
So what's generally happening is it's going either Bitcoin or Ethereum, USDT usually. If it starts at Bitcoin, it usually hops to the Ethereum chain, goes to an exchange, and then comes out on the Tron network. That's the typical line.
Comes out on the Tron network.
Yeah, Tron they love the Tron network just because the fees are low, and for whatever reason, they love the Tron network.
Who is that? That's Justin Lin, I think, is the guy who started that, or not?
I don't know.
I think so. Yeah, he's had his ass in trouble for years.
Justin's son.
Justin's son, that's it. I knew it was son or Lynn. I forget which one it was. People have been disparaging the Tron network because of him and his little laundering escapades for a while. So because of that, and because of the difficulty of Monero, it's you can trace a lot of these transactions. You have to do the bridge hopping with them, but you can trace that to the final cash out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the bridge hopping, to be honest with you, it's not generally too difficult. If you're using like a distributed exchange to do the bridge hopping, really all the information you need to follow it through that bridge is public. It's right there in public block explorers, and you have to know how to read it.
Right.
If it's kind of like a black box exchange, where it goes in like a hosted exchange basically, then you have to find one that is cooperative with us, and many of them are. And then you just get those records and you can pick it up on the other side of the bridge and keep following it.
That's nice. I don't want to give people false hope. So percentage wise, what do you think the amount of people that can actually get their money back is?
It's extremely low, right?
Okay.
But it's going to grow. It's going to grow as long as people start holding their local agencies accountable, right? And I don't blame it on the local agencies because they're just trying to stay up, keep their head above water. But they don't have the money to put into these forensic tools. They don't have the training. They don't even understand generally what it is. So that's why we're hoping to bridge that gap, because that's one of the things when I'm talking with law enforcement is, I get it that you don't know what's going on, and I get it that you're not going to trust some outside company. As an outside company, we have to block out. We can't do your investigation, and that's not what we're trying to do. But we can do the blockchain analytics, right? So you conduct your investigation. When you get on the blockchain and you say, hey, I lost it. This is where it goes. No problem. We'll take it from here. We'll tell you where it went. And then you pick your investigation back up. And there's many things that they can do as long as they know and they can understand what's going on the blockchain. You can start to go after it. And depending on what state you're in, right, there's different laws. And I think there's a lot of laws that are there's a lot of precedent that's yet to be set, which I think will be set in the coming years on, when you can go after forfeiture or seizure, and just to put a point on that, seizure is really, when we talk about it, that's taking back the victim's money, right? We're taking what was stolen, that stolen property being seized. Forfeiture is a different animal. Forfeiture is proceeds of criminal activity. Okay. And so forfeiture actually is above and beyond what you can actually tie to victim money. And it's more so saying, hey, these are proceeds. And so when we're talking about wallets, the idea is that this wallet itself is acting as an instrumentality to the crime of money laundering.
Gotcha. So
because this wallet exists for no other purpose than to launder money, any money that touches that wallet is dirty. And that's where you want to go after it.
That's nice.
And not everyone sees it that way. Not every state sees it that way. I mean, that's how the feds do it. That's how Florida is doing it. And there's other states that try to pursue it that way. But it's gonna be up to court precedent. And I think one of the drivers, for that is, I think if you start to see, and we get some precedent on that with forfeitures, you will see more agencies take interest, because let's face it. I mean, it's hard to drop $30,000 on a forensic tool when you think, what is this tool going to do for us other than we'll be able to tell our victim that their money's gone. We can already tell them that, right? But if it opens the door to show that, hey, no, we can go after it and we can get money and bring money back in, to recover for our victims and to pay for the tool, then it becomes a no-brainer at that point.
A buddy of mine, Eric Hunley, he runs I think it's the Eric Hunley Show. It's a very popular YouTube channel and podcast. The guy, this is early last year, he contacts me. I was on his show, and about 6 months later, he contacts me. He's like, Brett, can you help me? I was like, man, I don't know what's going on. He had been scammed out of like $2,000 and crypto. And I was like, Eric, I don't know if I can help you or not. I'll try any way that I possibly can, man. So I contacted, he's down in Tampa, contacted my FBI contacts who got me who he needed to contact at the field office there. I reached out to people on LinkedIn. I beat the drum as much as I possibly could for the guy. And the field office told him to file a report with IC3. The people who are in pig butchering that I contacted told me to have him contact them, that they would help as much as they could. And it was always crickets. And lo and behold, he traced the damn stuff himself, found out that it was going through Coinbase. And the funds were there for a solid month after he got scammed before they, moved out. And I look at that and the conversation that we're having, and you were very honest about that. Very few people are going to get their money back. And there's a host of reasons for that. And I don't know what else to say other than that. I look at these people who are getting ripped off. I look at crypto as a whole. I'm doing well with it. Of course, I've been hit twice in the space of, hell, I didn't even start until March 2nd. So I've been hit twice in the space of 6 weeks, and it's not as if I'm unschooled with scams. But I look at the people who are getting hit, who have the potential to get hit, and I'm wondering if it's ever going to get to the point, through regulations, through cooperation with law enforcement, through training with law enforcement, if through training with potential victims and individuals, if we're ever going to get to the point where the crypto vertical is a fairly safe place to try to, instead of gamble, invest. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, as far as all of these other coins that are opening up all the time, I think that's all just, in my mind, that's all a scam. Now,
I agree.
I think that Bitcoin and Ethereum, for one, aren't going anywhere. But I think the idea, when people think about crypto investment, right, they don't really want to invest. They want to hit the lottery. Like,
right.
they want to put in $100 today and have $1 million tomorrow. And that's just unrealistic. If you can look, and yes, it's happened. Like, lightning has struck a few times, and you hear these stories. But you're not going to do that. That's not what's going to happen to you. You're going to lose everything. Right. So I think long term, you want to park some money in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or ETH, any of these, right? That are main token blue chips. Hey, if you want to be a part of that, I say go for it. You put it in there and forget about it. But this idea that you're going to jump around and make a ton of money, you are buying a lottery ticket, and you have to understand that.
I agree completely. Jesse, if people want to reach out and contact you, contact Block Audit, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us at theblockaudit.com. And one thing I'll say, if you have any law enforcement, I'm sure there's some law enforcement listening on here. Mm-hmm. We have a membership. It's free for law enforcement. I try to keep just law enforcement in there, where we have a forum to discuss, issues with cases. If you don't have a forensic tool, there's other people on there with forensic tools. Like, hey, anyone have attribution for this wallet address? You can go on there. We also do training videos. So I try to do videos to explain what to do. We have all of the open source stuff on there. So if you're trying to learn how to do it, just go on there, sign up. It's free. I ain't going to hit you with a bunch of marketing emails or anything. I just want to try to get the word out that, hey, this is where you can go to start your investigation. And then on that note as well, if you're a victim out there and you've lost money, we will, one of our ways we're trying to get the word out, I will, if you report to your local police department and they don't know what to do, we will work your case for free for that local police department, 100%. Obviously we're trying to get our name out there, so it's not completely altruistic, but we'll do it for free for that law enforcement. Now, we're only going to do it if law enforcement contacts us, because there's no sense in us doing it if law enforcement isn't interested. But if you've lost money, report to your local police, and then you can give them our information, and we'll be happy to speak with them and do it for free to get them through on one. But yeah, you can find all my information on there.
Outstanding. I have known Jesse for several years, and I have always known Jesse to be upstanding, to be outstanding, to be someone who truly just wants to help. Truly. I mean, he's serious about doing the right damn thing every single day. So if you are in crypto, if you are the person who has been investing for a while, or you the person that is going to simply gamble and is looking for that lottery ticket, please pay attention to what Jesse has said today. Please pay attention to Block Audit as well. It's very important, because you are going to need this at some point. I'm a lifetime criminal, and in the space of 6 weeks, I've been hit twice. All right, everyone can be had. This is something that you need to know and something you need to be aware of. If you are law enforcement, I know, and Jesse knows this as well, law enforcement, you lack manpower, you lack budgets, you lack a lot of training where it's needed. Block Audit can absolutely help with this because we're in the midst of a crypto bull run right now, which means think of a bull run in crypto as an advertisement for all the scammers because they know that new uneducated blood is coming into the environment. All right. So if you're law enforcement and you're overwhelmed, please know that Jesse Gossman, that Block Audit is there and they absolutely can help. So reach out to them. Jesse, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Criminal Thoughts podcast. I truly appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. And I would just add one more thing I forgot to mention.
Yes, sir.
So blockchain intelligence group that has the tool Clue, they partnered with us, and we they have a training certification. So any law enforcement that's out there, I have the ability to sponsor them and provide some free training. So what I'll do is any law enforcement that's listening here that signs up on my site and puts their name up in the forums as a new member, I'll pick some people there and get them some free training. I think it's like a $3,000 certification, but I'll get that for them.
That is a beautiful thing. Jesse, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you had a birthday not too long ago. What'd you do on your birthday?
We went out on the boat. You know, it almost got messed up because I'm also an arson investigator. So we're literally at Publix picking up our subs to go out on a boat. My wife rented a pontoon boat for the day with me and my 3 girls, and I got that call that there had been an arson that I had to go to. Fortunately, I had one of my partners take care of it for me.
All right, dude. Well, happy belated birthday to you.
Thanks.
All right. I'm glad you had a good one. Glad it didn't get interrupted by the fire. But look, man, again, thank you so much for coming on Criminal Thoughts. I truly appreciate it. You have been and you remain outstanding. And I can't tell you how much I'm grateful to know you and to be able to interact with you, truly.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Brett. I appreciate everything you've done.
Yes, sir. We're going to close things out. This is the Criminal Thoughts podcast. Our guest was Jesse Gossman, and as you have seen, the man is outstanding, and he's given some solid advice to anyone who's interested in crypto, who might be investigating crypto as well. We're going to close things out. How do we do that? Same way every single time. Stay safe out there. Stay vigilant. Stay secure. More importantly, at the end of the day, just do the right damn thing. I'm Brett Johnson. This is the Criminal Thoughts Podcast. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in, taking the time to listen. Truly appreciate it. Until next time.